Hey class, welcome back to Strategies of Missions and Leadership Development. Last time we finished up our look at the exit strategy when a missionary is then leaving the field. And today we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to be looking at the missionary family and we're going to be looking at life on the field. Stay tuned for the PowerPoint.
Okay class, we'll now move into the PowerPoint for Strategies of Missions and Leadership Development. And today we'll be looking at session 18, Life on the Field. And this information comes from a very well-known missiologist, Herbert Kane, and his work, which is Life and Work on the Mission Field. That is an excellent book, an excellent resource for missions and mission life. And if this was a class specifically on life on the field, that would definitely be your textbook for a class just on the life on the field. But we are just looking at one PowerPoint here, and so I've drawn some of the pertinent points from Herbert Kane, and we'll just discuss these here today. So just some introductory material. A great challenge to missionaries is adaptation to the new missionary life. From a mission trip's first meal in a different country to a long-term missionary's home setup, missionaries must be adaptable. And that is almost just common sense or just basic introductory material. But unfortunately, many Americans are not good at adaptability. We have become very comfortable with how we live in our culture. And when we go out of that culture and we have to go and live in a different culture, then that change has to happen, and Americans are not good at it. We like to live a life that is what we're familiar with. And so today we're going to be looking at that adaptability on the field. Once on the field, the missionary is surrounded by people of that culture, and the missionary must adapt to that culture and cannot have an expectation put on the people of that culture to change to accommodate the missionary. It's the other way around. We don't expect the culture to change to us. When we go to a different culture, we need to adapt to that culture. The key areas to focus on in regards to life on the field are life adjustments, the health and foods that we're going to encounter, and also the home and family for the missionary and the missionary spouse, and also for the missionary kids. So this is, again, introductory material. We're going to look at these here in some detail. So let's talk about life adjustment. Entering the new field will require missionaries to adjust, and we're going to be looking at a couple of ways that they need to adjust. Number one is adjusting physically. Of course, if you're going to be going to the new field to be a missionary for any amount of time, you have to move there, whether that be a 2-week mission trip, you go into another country, or if you're going to be living there for 3 to 5 years, you have to physically move there and relocate to the people group's immediate area. And for the missionary, that is going to be in the neighborhood or the village or the area of the people that you're ministering to. So if you're going to be ministering to the people in a rural part of the country, don't expect to go live in the city. You need to live out in the country, or vice versa. If you like land, you like space, the open sky, and you're going to go and minister to people in a city, don't expect to minister in the city and then at 5 o'clock in the afternoon leave the city and go out to your house out in the countryside. No, you need to live and minister where the people are that you're ministering to. So that's going to bring us to housing. When a person physically moves, they're going to be living in an actual house or a home or apartment, and we cannot look at it like the homes in the United States, because most homes are not like the homes in the United States. In the United States, many people are blessed to live in decent-sized homes, several bedrooms, kitchen, living room, maybe even several bathrooms, a garage. Maybe. So homes are differently set up in the United States. We're, for the most part, pretty comfortable. Electricity, plumbing, a roof over your head, closets. These are different things that happen in the home in the United States. But around the world, most homes are not like that. Most homes are small. They might not have lots of bedrooms. They might have just one area for kitchen and living room all in one. Also, it could be dimly lit. There might not be a lot of lights in the home, or definitely not lighting like we would have in the United States. And some homes are even poorly constructed. There might be drafts. There might be open areas, and in some cases, in some parts of the world, there might not even be windows. Maybe it's just a curtain hanging instead of a window or a door. So housing could be completely different, and the adjustment there takes place. Missionaries should be sensitive regarding on how to set up their physical home. Let's say the missionary is living in a home, and let's say it's like 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and kitchen and living room. Well, how the missionary sets up the home and decorates the home should be in line with the other homes in the area. So the missionary might not have all those amenities that they would have in the United States. And so if a missionary tries to bring in everything from the United States that is kind of out of line with the typical home in the area that they're ministering in, well, then the missionary's home may become quite extravagant. So the missionary needs to be sensitive to that. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be uncomfortable. It can be comfortable, but it needn't be a barrier. There should not be any kind of barriers going on between the missionary and the people they're ministering to because of the physical things they bring into their home. Also, the food, the missionary needs to adjust to the types of food or the diet changes that can take place. Again, this is a physical adjustment because maybe the number of meals is different. In the United States, maybe it's 3 meals and a couple of snacks and some dessert before you go to bed. But in another country, it may be completely different. You might only have 2 meals, and the calories might be different. The calorie intake. We live on basically for a healthy diet, they say 2,000 calories a day. Well, there might be parts of the world that the calorie intake is much lower. Also, lack of Western foods and restaurants and fast food. All of that is going to be different. So if you're used to eating in restaurants a lot or going to McDonald's all the time because it's convenient, well, if you go to the mission field and that's not there, then you need to adjust to not having that fast food. And also how food is purchased. In the United States, we have refrigerators in our home, so we can maybe go grocery shopping once a week, put stuff in our refrigerator, the milk, the meats, whatever, in the refrigerator, and they stay preserved for quite a long time in the fridge. But if you're in a country that doesn't have refrigeration in every home, then you're not going to be buying things once a week. You might be buying it every day, especially meats, milk, maybe fish. These are the kinds of things that you can't purchase and put in the fridge. So you might be buying that every day, buying the food in the morning so you can have it for lunch or for dinner that day. So there's adjustment there with food. Also clothing. The missionary needs to find out what is the acceptable dress in that culture and may need to adapt to that. You may need to adapt to clothing that protects from the climate. Maybe clothing that would, if you're in a colder climate, you need to purchase an entire new wardrobe. That's according to the culture. It needs to be modest and also comfortable for the climate. So in the hot climate of a culture, let's say along the equator, they'll be wearing lighter clothing, maybe linen clothing, something that would be comfortable for that climate. And also physical adjustment in regards to lifestyle. Again, the standard of living in the United States is higher than most places in the world. So that should reflect in how the missionary lives their life. It should reflect the people that the missionary is with. So if the people that the missionary is with has a basic car, then the missionary buys a basic car. It doesn't have to be anything, some sort of sports car or some big SUV or something flashy. So the lifestyle also needs to change. But also there needs to be life adjustment socially. That means language. The person needs to learn the language to adapt and to function in society. That is essential. Also, hospitality. Cultures may be very open, and people walking into your home, or definitely it's expected that you invite people into your home. So socially, there needs to be adaptation in regards to hospitality, and how the missionary reacts to this is very important, because sometimes in the United States it's okay to have people over, but usually it's an invite and maybe not all that often. But in other cultures, it could be every day or several times a day. And the missionary's reaction to people coming to their house is very important. The missionary can't be closed off or trying to push people away. Also, socially, is segregation of the sexes. Unlike the United States, many cultures segregate men and women. Some cultures view women as second-class citizens. There's no public affection or any kind of hand holding or kissing or anything like that in public, and even to the point of the order of walking down the streets. In some cultures, the woman has to walk behind the man. So there's going to be differences there, and the missionary cannot offend in this area. Continuing on with social adjustment, the social structure is going to be different. So some cultures, there's class status that is very well defined, and then there's some that are not. But it most likely would be different than the United States, and a lot of cultures have what we would say is no middle class. There are some in the United States that make below a certain threshold, so we would say that is like the lower class. And then there's those that make above a certain threshold, so we would say, well, that's the upper class, that's the really rich. Well, in the United States, most people are in the middle class. They make between a certain, like a bracket of money every year from their jobs, and so there is a middle class, and we're used to that. But in other countries, there's no middle class at all. It's just either you're rich or you're poor. So there's adjustment there. Also propriety. There needs to be good manners and etiquette and respect going on in that culture that may be different than the United States. If you think about how we use our hands when we talk, or maybe wave to somebody, or a certain hand gesture, well, that could be offensive in another culture. So propriety. Purchasing is another social construct. How is it that people buy things? So is there a price tag on it, like we have in the United States, where you walk into Walmart and you see what the price is of that item and you have to pay that price? You don't go up to the cash register and start bartering with the cashier at Walmart. Is there a price tag on the item, or is it a society that barters or trades? And in some cultures, there's almost like badgering by the seller. So, if you're walking down the marketplace, people coming out of their stalls or their booths, and they're like badgering you to buy stuff. That may be an adjustment. Usually you don't have somebody at Walmart badgering you to buy something in the aisle at Walmart. But in a marketplace, you might get badgered by the seller, and it can become quite aggressive. Also, a different thing with society is the time. Time is different around the world, and how people use their time. And so in the United States, usually it's pretty strict. If you say you're going to be there at 5 o'clock and you're not there at 5 o'clock, well, then you're late. But in some societies, they don't even operate according to the clock. Being quote-unquote on time may be within a 2-hour range, for example. Or if you say, well, church starts at 10 a.m., well, in that society, it may regularly and consistently start at 10:20, even though it says on the bulletin or on the internet or wherever it is, it says it's 10 a.m. Some societies are not in any hurry at all. In the United States, we are in a hurry. We are rush, get to this, get to that. But in some societies around the world, there is no hurry at all. They take their time, and that can be quite frustrating for a missionary, so that's an adjustment. And also, some cultures have breaks throughout the day. For example, a siesta, where in the middle of the day they just stop everything for an hour or whatever the time is, and they just take a nap, or they just take a break. And they go get lunch and they don't come back for an hour. So there's a siesta. Or in some countries, there's like a tea time where, it's just socially what they do. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, things stop and people just go and have tea, or they have a break during that time. And then also we see, thirdly, the religious adjustments that have to take place. A missionary who is a Christian going into a non-Christian area is going to face these non-Christian religions. And so there's going to have to be adjustment there. You can see the power, quote unquote, of the non-Christian religions. and you can even maybe even feel them. I had a missionary friend of mine who was a missionary in India, and he said that when he went into certain parts of the city, especially one that had a lot of temples in it, he could almost feel the evil and feel the darkness of that community because of how suppressed it was spiritually. And so the missionary needs to adjust to that and know that they're going to be facing non-Christian religions. There might be mosques, there might be temples, there might be shrines or idols everywhere. So the missionary needs to adjust and be understanding that they're going to be entering into a suppressed area for Christianity. Also, religion in everyday life can be seen. The people group that the missionary is in, they may worship or publicly worship daily or several times a day, or stop for prayers, or whatever is going on in that false religion religiously. That missionary needs to adjust and understand. Obviously, I'm not saying that the missionary is participating in this in any way. I'm just saying that there needs to be adjustment for life. That in the United States, most people are not publicly doing things religiously every day. If anything, in the United States, people going to Catholic Mass, which could be every morning, or maybe in a mosque in a city doing something. But usually, people in the United States are not confronted by religion every day. So in the field that they may be. Also, the way people dress in their everyday dress can have religious overtones, and so men wearing certain things, women wearing certain things because of their religion, and so the missionary needs to understand that and be ready to see that. Okay, so that was life adjustments. Now let's look at health adjustments. Number one is there's dangers to people's health as they live on the field. There's poor sanitation in some areas, maybe open sewers where disease can flourish. Dirty water can cause sickness and other problems. So drinking water is a major issue and can cause dangers. And obviously disease and sickness, everything from bloodborne diseases such as malaria from a mosquito bite to disease or sickness that someone can get because of poor hygiene. So we see there are dangers, and the missionary needs to take steps to protect themselves in regards to their health. Also, number two is adjustments in regards to food. In some cultures, there may be a lack of variety of foods. Different types of foods might be lacking, different nutrients. Maybe there's not so much fruits or vegetables, or maybe it's a different kind of protein. Maybe you're used to eating red meat, and the area you're in is more fish-based. And also fruits and vegetables might be different, or they might lack fruits and vegetables. Also, in regards to food that needs to be taken into consideration and adjusted is blandness or over-spiced food. In some cultures, might not be much seasoning at all, and someone would be like, well, this is pretty bland, but that's just the way the culture is. Or in other cultures, there might be much spice, and it's very spicy food because of peppers or different kinds of spices that really give that food some kick. And if you're not used to spicy food, or you don't like spicy food, there might have to be an adjustment there. Also, contaminants in food. There could be dirty food because it is not washed, or what is just not in the United States, but it could be used in other countries, is fertilizer for the food. It may actually come from humans and not animals, and so it could cause issue there. Also, spoiled food such as fruits, vegetables, meats, fish, parasites if it's not cooked properly. So there's different things that can take place because of food issues, and also preservation challenges. Again, like I said, if there's not refrigeration or electricity, so that you may have to buy your food every day, and you can't really preserve it. Or you could be in a culture that preserves their food with salt, and so you could have a high salt intake, which high sodium is not a good diet. So there's different food challenges, and the missionary needs to adjust for that. Also, children's health is very important, especially for missionary kids. Children are more susceptible to disease. Little kids always putting things in their mouths, so it's going to spread germs and collect germs that way. Little kids are also not always clean, meaning let's say they don't wash their hands, and so after using the restroom or touching things and they don't wash their hands, put it in their mouth, next thing you know, they're sick. If in the care of an indigenous person, whether that be in the home with like maybe a nanny or some sort of a helper in the home, and could be also in church, or let's say you're at a church plant in some country somewhere, and the kid is in the nursery or the kid is in the child care, and just germs are spread. And it can also come from the indigenous person who might not be taking care of themselves in regards to hygiene, and they can spread that way. So sanitation for kids, it definitely is an issue in cultures, and tuberculosis and dysentery are very common in especially in third world countries. So taking care of children is extremely important. And also medicine. There's going to have to be adjustments there. Definitely, there's going to be different types of facilities in the United States and other modern countries. There's top-notch facilities, hospitals and clinics and whatnot. But in other countries, it might not be that way. So facilities. Also, in the United States, we have very specific pharmaceutical needs, and we can go get medicines from a pharmacy with a doctor's prescription. But in other countries, you might just walk into a pharmacy and say, "These are my symptoms," and they give you a couple of pills. So, there's different facilities in different countries. Childbirth can be a challenge in other countries, especially third world countries. And if the, let's say, missionary wife gets pregnant while on the field, is there prenatal care? Is there, are there doctors for that? In some countries there might not be access to hospitals everywhere, or the equipment, or the professionals to be able to deal with childbirth or with issues in childbirth. And also, medicines might not be available. If a missionary is on a specific medicine, they may need to have that shipped from the United States. So medicine can also be an area of adjustment. And then we see the home adjustment. So let's look at the single home. So this would be single missionaries, those that are not married. There may be some adjustments there. Single women missionaries do adapt better than single men missionaries. Statistically, that's what happens. Women can put together a home and function and be perfectly fine, but sometimes single men have a lot of problems. So the single missionary may have some adjustments to do. Statistically, single women and also single women roommates. So if there's, let's say, two women who are single and they roommate together, they can do very well, while single men do tend to struggle. Disadvantages is that if a single missionary goes to the field for 3 to 5 years or even longer, it does look like marriage prospects do diminish. So sometimes single missionaries can stay on the field quite a long time and be single, and that's perfectly fine. But if the person, whether it be man or woman, has a desire to marry, there may be challenges there in regards to the field that they're in. Also, loneliness can cause lower effectiveness in some cultures. So, a person that is single needs to understand or adjust to a culture that they may be feeling isolated or lonely because they're single. But there is an advantage to this. The person that is single is free from family responsibilities that a married couple would have, or a home with children. They are free from those responsibilities, so they can focus on the ministry, focus on the work. They can travel easier, even travel home to visit parents or something. They could travel easier, and it's also less expensive to live as a single missionary than it does to have a family with children. So now let's move on to the married home. So we have husband and wife, and they can work together in this domestic life and also the religious life. So, being single and being a missionary there, that's perfectly fine, but also the married home has advantages too, and they can work together as husband and wife. But there are some challenges and some adjustments to happen. Setting up a family home in this environment is going to be different than setting up a home in the United States. So you have the husband and wife, and then you have the children. And I just put a note there that children are usually nicknamed MKs, which is missionary kids. And so you're going to be dealing with that. So not only would you be like raising a family like you would in the United States, well, now you're raising a family in this other culture. So there's going to be those challenges, whether that be the challenges that we've looked at with health or food, or learning the language and raising the children in that environment. So there are some challenges there, but it can also be a great blessing as the husband and wife raise their children on the missionary field in the service to the Lord. So another area that can be kind of challenging for the couple is that some cultures have paid servants. And what that is that there are people in cultures that it's a cultural thing that they would actually have servants in the home. It could be anything from a nanny, that live-in housekeeper, to cooks. And so these are cultures that pay people to do that, and they are paid servants. And a missionary, that could be a challenge. They might not want that in their home, and so they would have to come to a decision, and a conscious decision, or something that would deal with their moral conscience, if they would want to pay someone to be in their home as a paid servant. And it might be different if it's let's say a live-in housekeeper. That's one thing compared to someone that is like cooking your meals for you, and they're not a hired chef. They're just people in your home cooking your meals for you. So that would be a decision that the husband and wife would have to come to there. But I was in a missionary home in Nicaragua, and that's what they did. They actually had a housekeeper and 2 cooks, and they would show up at like 6 a.m. And there were 3 ladies. They would show up at like 6 a.m. and one would begin the domestic chores of cleaning and making sure the home was ready for the missionaries. And there were 2 cooks. One kind of did like more prep work and did the shopping, and the other one was more of the main cook. And they prepared the meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so the missionary would come to the table and sit down, and they would actually be served. Now, the people were being paid, okay? So it's not like they're being unpaid or something, but it was just different than the United States. And so some missionaries might not want that in their home. Others would have it. Also, hospitality in that people group needs to be looked at for the missionary home. As the married husband and wife and kids, they need to be welcoming. If it's a culture that people are visiting, dropping by all the time, welcoming. And when they drop by, is it customary to give them coffee or give them some kind of a snack or something? So being ready for that. Have other missionaries stop by or housing them. Let's say a missionary comes to the area for a conference, and you need to house them. So the missionary couple needs to be ready for that and adjust for that. Also in the home is educating the children. How are those MKs going to be educated? And that's going to be up to the parents. So it could be the missionary teaching the children in the home, so taught by the missionary, which would be like homeschool. Now, some parts of the world you cannot homeschool, especially some parts of Europe. They become very liberal and they have banned homeschooling. So where is the child going to be educated? Will they be educated in the United States, meaning that the parents send the children back to the United States to live, and maybe they live with a family member or live at a boarding school, but they get during the semester they're in the United States being taught, or they're educated in a missionary/overseas American school. In some countries, there's actually American schools for missionary children. So would they be there, or are they being educated in the public school in the area that you're in? So let's say you're living in a city. Let's say you're living in Edinburgh, Scotland. Are they being educated in the public school in Scotland? So there's just different options there for the children, and there needs to be some adjustment in the married home with the MKs. Okay, so that is it for Strategies of Missions, looking at life on the field. I'll see you in a second.
All right, class, that's it for today. Next time, we'll be looking at the missionary and how they deal with culture shock. I'll see you then.